What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and today I'm back with another book review for you guys, and I'm going to be talking about Star Wars Tarkin by James Luceno. This was another Star Wars book I listened to the audiobook version of, and again, it was a fantastic production. The narrator was great. The narrator was Ewan Morton, I believe is how you say his name. It's E-U-A-N. But he did an outstanding job as Wilhuff Tarkin. His voice sounded just like Peter Cushing from Star Wars A New Hope, so he did a great job. There's always music and sound effects in these Star Wars audiobooks, and overall you can tell they spend a lot of time and effort on putting these productions together. So if you are into Star Wars and maybe thinking about trying out reading some Star Wars, try out one of the audiobooks. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with how well the production is on those. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and read the synopsis for you guys real quick, and then get into my thoughts and everything about the book. He's the scion of an honorable and revered family, a dedicated soldier and distinguished legislator, loyal proponent of the Republic and trusted ally of the Jedi Order. Groomed by the ruthless politician and Sith Lord who would be Emperor, Governor Wilhuff Tarkin rises through the Imperial ranks, enforcing his authority ever more mercilessly, and zealously pursuing his destiny as the architect of absolute dominion. Rule through the fear of force rather than the force itself, he advises Emperor. Under Tarkin's guidance, an ultimate weapon of unparalleled destruction moves ever closer to becoming a terrifying reality. When the so-called Death Star is completed, Tarkin is confident that the galaxy's lingering pockets of separatist rebellion will be brought to heel by intimidation or annihilation. Until then, however, insurgency remains a genuine threat. Escalating guerrilla attacks by resistance forces and newfound evidence of a growing separatist conspiracy are an immediate danger the Empire must meet with swift and brutal action. And to bring down a band of elusive freedom fighters, the Emperor turns to his most formidable agents, Darth Vader, the fearsome new Sith enforcer, as remorseless as he is mysterious, and Tarkin, whose tactical cunning and cold-blooded efficiency will pave the way for the Empire's supremacy and its enemies' extinction. So for this is part of the new Star Wars Disney canon timeline, but it does sort of have some, I guess, inconsistencies, because this was written before the Rogue One movie came out, and the Rogue One movie dealt a lot with the construction of the Death Star. Orson Krennic in the movie was sort of in charge of that, and they've said that anything in a movie canon-wise would top what is in a book. So this book sort of contradicts a little bit with the movie, but you can sort of wiggle your way through and make a case for how it can all fit together. So there is no, Orson Krennic's not in this or anything from Rogue One. In this, it seems like Tarkin is really the one in charge of the Death Star project, the architect of it all, putting it all together, when in the movies it's Krennic, and then once the Death Star is actually a working battle station, that's when Tarkin sort of swoops in and takes control over it, because he sort of, in the movie, thought it wasn't going to work, and he didn't want to be associated with failure, but once he does find out it works, he sort of takes that over from Krennic. So all that stuff isn't in this, but this is a little bit earlier in the timeline, so you could say, Krennic would come in later and whatnot. I haven't read the Rogue One book or the book Catalyst, which is the Rogue One tie-in, and those are also written by James Luceno. Excuse me, at least I think Catalyst is. So he might tie how all that works together. But anyway, I'm rambling. This is Tarkin's story. We don't really see much of Tarkin in the movies. He's briefly glimpsed at the end of episode 3. It's just him far away with the Emperor and Vader, and then he's in A New Hope, and he's sort of the, next to Vader, he's sort of the antagonist of the movie. We know he's in charge of the Death Star. He seems this cold, intimidating person, and then he dies at the end of the movie. We don't get anything other than that from him. If you're a fan of the animated shows, the Clone Wars, he's in the Clone Wars a little bit, back when he was fighting with the Republic against the Separatists and the Clone Army, and that's touched on in this book. This book delves into a lot of his earlier life, It does actually mention stuff from the Clone Wars show where Tarkin and Anakin, they worked together on a mission and were actually captured together. And he's in the TV show Rebels as well, the animated show. And those are the only two that he's in. He's in Rebels just a little bit. But it goes even further back into his life when he is a boy. He's from the planet Iriadu, and it's a very rugged wilderness planet. And I really like the juxtaposition of sort of how we see Tarkin in the movies. You know, he's this clean-cut, sort of straight-laced guy, and he just seems cold and brutal and calculating. And he was still cold and brutal and calculating as a child, but he grew up in this wilderness planet, and it just is a setting you wouldn't picture Tarkin in. And he sort of has to go on this, this not soul quest, but sort of this quest to prove himself as a man. His family is sort of the family that's in charge of the planet, but it's considered a backwater planet to the inner planets, the inner core. And he has to go through this rugged wilderness sort of hunting safari expedition. I just really liked him out in the wild and struggling to survive, and killing animals and trying not to be eaten and attacked. That was really cool to see that, and how that formed him into what he would become as we see him in the movies. So all that was really interesting. It skips a lot of time here. We see him as a boy. Then we see him sort of going to the academy and getting training, and he's sort of looked down upon because he's the outcast from the outer planets, the outer rim. And we see where he gets introduced to Senator Palpatine, who we all know is the Emperor. So their relationship starts to form in the book. We get to see the beginnings of that. Now we see him, like I said, in the Clone Wars. And then this book really takes place right after the Clone Wars ended, a couple years after that. So there's still a lot of the separatist factions in here, still the battle droids. A lot of that tech that we see in the Clone Wars movies is still here. We're sort of in the transition, sort of middle phase between what all the tech and the ships and things looked like from the Clone Wars to how they looked in, A New Hope for the first time. So it's sort of that in-between phase. And it's still, I don't know, maybe 10 years or more before the Death Star is actually completed, before we get to the A New Hope setting. So I really liked all that, and this is, like I said, from Tarkin's perspective, and Vader is along for the ride. He's sort of a sidekick in this. And Vader's my favorite Star Wars character of all time, and Star Wars itself is my favorite franchise of all time. I like it more than Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or any of that stuff. Star Wars is definitely my favorite. So we're along for this story from Tarkin and Vader's points of view, and of course they are the bad guys. Even though I love Vader, he's a bad guy. And it was just sort of funny going through when they're getting attacked by these like guerrilla fighters and these rebellion fighters and these separatists. Since it's from Tarkin's point of view and Vader's point of view, it came across, and I didn't even realize this as I was listening to it, that the people they're fighting against, these guerrilla fighters, those are actually the good guys. But we're looking at it through Tarkin's perspective, so it comes across as, Tarkin's the hero in this. He's the one that we should be rooting for, the good guy, and he's fighting against these villainous people. But really, these villainous people are the seeds that would become the rebellion that we see in A New Hope and stuff. So he's fighting the good guys, but since it's from his perspective, it seems like he's the good guy fighting against the bad guys. And I just thought that was interesting, because I didn't really even pay attention to that or notice that until closer to the end of the book, when everything starts to come together, that he's actually fighting, the good guys in this, but we want the good guys to die. We want the good guys to lose because we're following it from Tarkin's perspective. Vader in here is great. We get a little bit more of Vader and Tarkin's relationship. We got that really briefly in A New Hope. It sort of felt like Tarkin was maybe in charge of Vader a little bit. We get more of their relationship, and there's this sort of conspiracy theory. There's conspiracy weave throughout the workings of the sort of the new empire, and some separatists and stuff they're trying to fight against the empire. There's these rumors of this battle station, the Death Star, but a lot of it hinges on Tarkin's own ship, the Carrion Spike, which is unique. It's one of the most advanced ships in the galaxy, and it has cloaking, so it can basically go invisible, and you can't see it on radar or anything. And a lot of the plot revolves around his personal ship, the Carrion Spike, and that's been shown in like comic books and stuff. And if I remember, I'll put a picture of it up here so you can see what that looks like. But it involves sort of a plot to get the Carrion Spike and have that assist in the rebels or the separatists, their fight against the Empire. Overall, I did enjoy the book. It was a bit slow and plotting at times, but that is sort of the character of Tarkin himself. He's slow and calculating. He's not brash. He doesn't make split-second decisions. He sort of thinks them out and plans ahead. So that's sort of in line with how the character is. But it did get a little slow at parts. There's not a ton of action in the book. There are some good action set pieces, but it's not just, you know, guns blazing the whole story. I did try to read this one. I know it's been a few years ago now, really before I got into reading. I had checked it out from the library and I read, you know, 50, 60 pages of it and just put it down. And it's not necessarily that I wasn't enjoying the story, it just I didn't have the attention span to read back then. So the beginning of the book was familiar, I did remember that. But overall, I did really enjoy the story. I liked learning more about Tarkin and his backstory, his past, sort of the trials and tribulations that he went through as a child that were sort of thrust upon him based on who his family was and his upbringing and their lineage into the man that he became that we know from the movies themselves. And of course, anytime you throw Vader in there, I'm always going to enjoy it because, like I said, I love Vader. Overall, I think I would give this story 3 stars out of 5. It was a good story, but it wasn't my favorite Star Wars story by any means. But overall, it was good. I do wish it tied in more with the Rogue One stuff, but obviously this was written before that even existed, so I'll let that part slide. I doubt they would ever revise this to maybe mention Krennic or anything, but like I said, that's just nitpicky, sort of like all the canon pieces to fit together kind of stuff. And like I said, it might explain more of it in the book Catalyst that James Luceno also wrote. I haven't read that one yet, so we'll see. But that's all I really have to say about it. Again, if you like Star Wars, if you like Tarkin especially, or Vader, I think you'll enjoy this story. It was interesting. I can't remember how long the audiobook was. I want to say like 9 hours or so. I might be wrong on that. I don't really remember. I listened to it last month sometime. But anyway, I'm starting to ramble. So I'll go ahead and let y'all go. Again, this has been my 3-star review of Star Wars Tarkin by James Luceno. If you like the Empire and sort of the fledgling, the building of the Empire before A New Hope, that time period, I think this is a story you should check out. It was fun. It just wasn't as action-packed as some of the other stories. But that's all I have for you guys today, so thanks for spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.